people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, and now it's time for our extended recap, as there were a great number of fights happening by way of several different promotions, Golden Boy Promotions being one among them, where Yokasta Valle, reigning IBF minimum weight champion, made her Golden Boy Promotions debut against spirited challenger Lorraine Villalobos.
Yokasta Valle was really working that jab throughout the entirety of this fight.
And she had a lot of success with that lead hand, bringing over her right,
stepping into it and then putting punches together.
Looked like she hurt Lorraine Villalobos with that 1-2 combination several times throughout the course of this fight, backing Lorraine into the ropes, who was doing as best as she could to make it a fight and keep it a fight.
It did look like she was hurt several times.
Several times at the hands of the reigning defending IBF minimum weight champion, who'd let go of that 1-2 combination, step into it, and follow up with flurries. Frenzied flurries.
Like I said, you got the sense that if Yokasta would have been a little bit more accurate with her punch picking, she could have actually stopped Lorraine.
Having a slight height advantage, a slight reach advantage, somewhat more athletic than Lorraine Villalobos, Yokasta Valle had the drop on her.
She had the drop on Lorraine at every turn.
And it really was all off the jab. This is one of those fights that reminds you how important consistent usage of the lead hand is, as Yokasta Valle was able to effectively manage the distance by way of the lead hand.
In and out, shooting that jab.
Whether Yokasta Valle was stepping into it to start off a combination or taking a half step back.
Still shooting that jab to keep Lorraine Villalobos at arm's length.
This was Yokasta Valle's first fight of what is reported to be a multi-fight contract with the people over there at Golden Boy Promotions, and we've talked about this and how on the face of it, this could be interpreted as a play in order to get the unification match over the line between Yokasta Valle and Tszyu Estrada. On the face of it, that's how it might look. And post-fight, Yokasta Valle was actually asked about unifying with the other champions at the weight, not just Tszyu Estrada.
Who's next? Si hablamos ya un poquito, porque sé que vas a entrenar en California. ¿Quién viene? ¿Quién sería el siguiente? La siguiente.
La siguiente, cualquiera de las campeonas. Yo sé que mi promotor,
ahí, mira.
Mi promotor Mario Vega, Mad Nation, estamos esperando. Lo que queremos es la unificación de título mundial. La que sea. Tszyu, Tina Rupert, Tszyu Estrada son las campeonas. Entonces, la que sea, queremos pelear, queremos unificar títulos mundiales. Ellas quieren, ya sí hasta una negociación con Tszyu, la campeona de la OMB. Entonces, esa es la que tenemos ahorita más acercamiento con Mad Nation.
The interesting part about that post-fight interview is that according to Yokasta Valle, they've already entered into negotiations with reigning WBO minimum weight champion Tszyu. She mentioned the other champions, Tina Ruprecht, who she's fought before.
Yeah.
Tina Ruprecht, who gave Yokasta Valle her first professional loss. She mentioned this division's apex predator, Tszyu Estrada.
Tszyu, who wasn't impressed with what she saw.
Post-fight, the reigning WBA minimum weight champion took to social media and stated, "Snooze fest by Yokaka. There's only one super bad."
According to Yokasta Valle, they've already entered into negotiations with Tszyu, not Tszyu Estrada.
Tszyu, the newly crowned WBO champion of Vietnam, she's the weakest link on the chain. She is the least experienced titleist, least experienced champion in today's minimum weight division. It's not by accident that the Valle people have already targeted a unification match with her, as opposed to Tina Ruprecht, who already beat Yokasta Valle many years ago, as opposed to Tszyu Estrada, the most dangerous fight for any fighter, any champion at or around these weights. It's not by accident that they've already entered into negotiations with Tszyu and not them.
This goes back to what I told you in a previous video. I'm not sure that Tszyu Estrada's with Golden Boy Promotions anymore.
If she were, one would assume that the next fight they'd try to make for Senicia and Yokasta would be a fight between them. But according to Yokasta, they're planning on getting Tszyu Nuñin in the ring. And if they do, and Yokasta Valle becomes a unified champion in her very next fight, and if Senicia Estrada's not staying at Golden Boy Promotions,
If she's leaving, going to some other outfit.
how much more difficult would that make the negotiation process in order to see an undisputed champion crowned in the women's minimum weight division? I see a situation to where perhaps becoming undisputed at minimum weight.
There are politics now, or there could be.
We know that Yokasta's a Golden Boy Promotions fighter, and she's going to be a Golden Boy Promotions fighter for the foreseeable future, whereas with Senicia, it's a little bit more murky.
It might be easier to shoot for undisputed at light flyweight than minimum weight.
And it's not because of the threat level, you understand. I give Senicia very good odds to beat every single champion in today's minimum weight division, Yokasta Valle included. It's the politics that are going to make things difficult. If Yokasta Valle is a Golden Boy Promotions fighter and Senicia Estrada is not, hypothetically speaking, how much more difficult could that make the negotiation process? Whereas up there at light flyweight, one division north of minimum weight, Golden Boy ain't got no ponies in that show.
There's a lot of mystery surrounding what Senicia Estrada's next move is going to be.
Mystery because I don't get the sense that Senicia Estrada is with Golden Boy Promotions anymore. And if she's not, well, what's she gonna do next?
Where's she going to go? Who's she going to fight?
And when? For now, Yokasta Valle has officially made her Golden Boy Promotions debut, and she looked good doing it in what was a fan-friendly fight, though I don't get the sense...
I don't think we're going to be seeing her take on Senicia Estrada in the near future.
Not based on how things have been looking. We then come to the main event of that same card, the Jaime Munguia versus Jimmy Kelly fight, a fight where I had Jaime Munguia losing the first 4 rounds of this thing to the very unheralded, albeit spirited and somewhat capable Jimmy Kelly, who looked to have been boxing circles around Jaime Munguia, sticking and moving and keeping the punches short, smothering Jaime's work whenever Jaime did get mid-range to inside.
Jimmy was keeping it long and loose on the outside.
Tying Jaime Munguia up mid-range to inside, that's Jaime Munguia's sweet spot, a characteristic for many come-forward aggressive pressure fighters. That's what Jaime is. He's a pressure fighter. And Jimmy Kelly instinctively smothered his work there.
Yeah.
A lot of ring savvy.
I had him winning the first 4 rounds easily.
Sticking and moving and staying along the perimeter of the ring, spinning off those ropes as to keep Jaime moving. Don't let the guy set his feet. Don't let him plant them, because once he does, he's going to start firing hard shots.
Jimmy Kelly definitely had the right strategy.
He was fighting the right kind of fight. He wasn't just giving up real estate. He wasn't just retreating from Jaime Munguia. He was walking him into shots. I saw him land several interesting left hooks.
They didn't hurt Jaime per se, though they definitely got his attention.
Wasn't wobbled by the shots. He wasn't on Queer Street. He didn't lose his legs per se, but they were big enough shots and hard enough shots, eye-catching shots, that,
like I said, I had Jimmy Kelly winning every round through 4.
he fought the right kind of fight that you need to fight against a pressure fighter. He let his hands go enough, just enough, that he was winning the rounds, being busy, being effective, but he stayed on the move as well, as to not allow that pressure fighter to plant his feet and get off his power punches.
It was alternating between offense and defense, which is what you have to do with a pressure guy.
You know, unless you've got some hell of a big right hand or some hell of a great left hook, you don't just sell out with a pressure fighter. You don't just decide to bang in the booth with them, because you are essentially giving them what they want.
If you decide to fight fire with fire, that's exactly what they want to do.
So if you decide to fight fire with fire, you better have some hell of a great chin.
You're gonna need certain physical attributes in order to fight fire with fire against a pressure fighter like Jaime.
Jimmy Kelly's approach was more strategic, alternating between offense and defense, staying on the move as to not allow the pressure fighter to plant his feet, but being busy enough and showing enough offense that he's not getting outworked and that he's not getting pushed around.
He really was fighting the right kind of fight up until the 5th
It
round.
was in the 5th round that Jimmy Kelly was hurt by a very short left hook he didn't see coming in the pocket. A short left hook that Jaime fired at a time when
He was open.
Jimmy didn't have that right hand up to protect that side of his
When that
face.
short left hook landed, it instantly hurt Jimmy Kelly.
Sent him reeling into those ropes as Jaime Munguia had sat him on his back pocket, and he was visibly hurt afterwards.
Never got his legs back.
Jimmy Kelly beat the count, rose to his feet. Instead of circling away from Jaime, he decided to sell out and fight with him.
Hindsight being 2020, that wasn't the way to go. That wasn't a good idea.
Whatever success Jimmy Kelly was having, it wasn't through brute force or strength of arms, it was through his boxing. And in that situation, it could have and should have.
He shouldn't have tried to punch with Jaime. He should have stayed away.
After that initial knockdown, Jimmy Kelly was knocked down 2 more times before the ref waved it off, and the rest, as they say, is history. This was one of those fights that remind us why Jaime Munguia is matched the way that he's matched. That he's a great physical specimen, strong young guy, entertaining fighter, pressure fighter, but make no mistake,
He's vulnerable.
even more bizarre is it post-fight, Jaime Munguia issued out a challenge to Charlo, saying, grow some balls! Stop hiding behind Al Heyman!
Hiding. You guys are the ones that walked away.
It feels like both Jaime Munguia and Oscar De La Hoya are just trolling at this point. Jaime was quoted as saying, I think this fight helped me out a lot. I'm ready to go back down to 160 to fight for a world title or move to 168. I'm ready for any challenge. There are a lot of people who are supporting me. I want to say what Oscar De La Hoya said for Charlo, to grow some balls and stop hiding behind Heyman. I think it would be great for boxing. We hope that by the end of the year, we can get a big fight. And short of a Charlo fight in the middleweight division, what other big fights are out there? Because the biggest name at the weight, Gennady Golovkin, we know who he's going to be fighting in the near future.
He's fighting Canelo Alvarez in September, and that's the biggest name at the weight.
Jaime's never seemed all that interested in challenging Demetrius Andrade for his WBO title. Not that it matters anymore anyway, because Yanibek Alim Kanuli, he's in a pole position to challenge him for it, or pick up the vacant title as soon as it's vacated. I mean, what big fights are there out there for Jaime besides the Charlo fight that he already walked away from?
We talked about that, how Oscar said unless the zone is involved, they don't want to do it.
Which I've said on several occasions already. That doesn't make any fucking sense, because that fight isn't a big enough fight to where you need 2 different promoters and 2 different platforms to be involved. If Showtime was willing to pay for the fight and willing to do it,
You don't have anything better for him to do, anyone better for him to fight.
at some point, you've got to be willing to gamble. And because Golden Boy Promotions doesn't necessarily have all that many bodies to spare, they didn't want to gamble. They pulled him out of that fight to put him in this one.
Charlo versus Munguia is a fascinating fight.
It's a fascinating fight because I view both fighters as having their own sets of drawbacks. You know, Jaime Munguia, he's no cerebral fighter. His approach is a straightforward approach. He's a pressure fighter. That's what he is. But I happen to think he's a better physical specimen than Charlo, even though Charlo is a better boxer than Jaime. He's got the right kind of base style to beat a pressure guy.
He's got the right base style for the job, but is he durable enough to hang in there?
Is he durable enough to execute it? You saw what he looked like with Juan Macias Montiel, and Juan Macias Montiel is a cut below a Jaime Munguia. We know that because Jaime actually knocked that guy out before.
Jermall Charlo's got the right base style for the job,
But is he physically durable enough and strong enough to execute it? Because I happen to think Jaime Munguia is the better physical specimen.
styles make fights.
A generic term that you often hear said in the sport of boxing that often rings true, though it doesn't address everything in between. The little things, the nuances, that a guy might have the right base style for the job, but physically, is he durable enough to execute?
How's his chin gonna hold up when he gets hit?
What's his gas tank like? His power, his speed? Some things boil down to strategy, skill, and application.
Some things do and some things don't. Some things are physicality.
Like a guy's punch resistance, like a guy's gas tank, he can be a pretty good fighter, pretty formidable one the first 3, 4, maybe even 5 rounds, but if he fades down the stretch...
Well, that doesn't boil down to skill. That's a physicality. That boils down to the guy's cardio, his condition.
The level at which the fighter competes is pretty goddamn important too. You can have the right base style for the job, but at what level do you compete with it? Are you just a C+ boxer puncher? B-, solid B, maybe a B+? At what level are you competing with the skills you're applying? At what level is Jermall Charlo competing, fighting guys that Jaime Munguia knocked out years ago?
The truth is that Jermall Charlo hasn't separated himself. He's not head and shoulders above anybody at middleweight.
He hasn't proven that. Jaime Munguia's quality of competition isn't great. but neither is Jermall Charlo's, and that's what makes the fight intriguing. That's why the middleweight division needs that fight, though sadly,
It won't happen.
we're probably never going to get it. We're probably never going to see
You
it.
can't blame Jermall Charlo for that fight's collapse.
You can blame Jermall Charlo for some other fights that haven't happened, like the offer he's reported to have rejected for a Canelo Alvarez fight, never unifying with Demetrius Andrade. You can blame Jermall Charlo and his team for those things, but you can't actually blame him for this. It was Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions that sabotaged this fight, and now they're doing little more than trolling, telling Jermall Charlo to find his balls when they're the ones that walked away. And just in keeping with the theme of all things Charlo, per a tweet from Michael Benson, Jermell Charlo versus Tszyu is now agreed and will take place as a WBO mandatory defense of Charlo's undisputed WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO super welterweight titles. WBO President Paco Veracel has revealed. I wasn't expecting this to happen. I was expecting that Jermell, after knocking out Brian Castano, which I said he would do, which I said would happen, I was expecting that shortly afterwards he'd go up to middleweight, that he'd vacate those alphabet titles, and we wouldn't get the Tszyu fight.
In the past, Jermell has always been dismissive of that fight.
Blew it off on more than one occasion. You didn't get the sense that he'd stick around at 154 pounds to give Tszyu that opportunity. But if he's choosing to stay there a little longer, I'm not against it, though I'm going to be honest. I don't think Tszyu is ready for that fight. I've said that before. I don't think here and now that Tszyu is ready to lift those belts off Jermell Charlo, and I happen to have a high opinion of Tszyu. I think he's progressing very well.
Quality scalps in Takeshi Inoue and Terrell Gausha.
It's good experience there, and those are good scalps for an unbeaten up-and-comer attempting to become a world-class contender. And here today, that's what Tszyu is. He's world-class, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's ready for Jermell.
He's not.
There's not a lot of guys at 154 pounds that Jermell hasn't fought.
They're on a lot of base styles he hasn't seen already.
Pure boxer in Tony Harrison, a boxer puncher in Erickson Lubin, two pressure fighters in Jason Rosario and Brian Castano.
He stopped all those guys, and he might stop Tszyu.
I'm just being honest. If Jermell Charlo connects the way that Terrell Gausha connected on Tszyu when he floored him for the first time in his career, there's a chance that Tszyu don't get up.
Tszyu's a cross between a boxer puncher and a pressure fighter.
He's not as careless and reckless as your, according to Hoyle, pressure fighter, though he definitely applies pressure, educated pressure, and he's got world-class power. He's got a world-class punch, but he'll need more than that. He'll need world-class defense.
He can't afford to get hit by Jermell the way he got hit by Terrell.
Jermell Charlo, this division's undisputed champion, who's coming off of a career-best performance in his rematch with Brian Castano. He stopped that guy, and Brian's a handful. Brian's a very durable guy, a durable fighter, and you see what Jermell did to him. He broke him down.
Might have been contentious the first time out, but not the second.
I said it before, and I'll say it again. The worst thing that could happen for young Tim is he actually gets Jermell in the ring. He actually lands the fight that he's been pursuing, because I don't think he's ready for that fight right now. And it's not because he's a bad fighter. He's just green.
Yeah, he needs more experience. He's nowhere near as experienced as Jermell.
I'm a fight fan, not a manager or a fanager. If they want to do that thing sooner than later, you can bet your ass I'm going to watch it.
Imagine if Tim won.
What a statement that would be. But how many of you guys out there are actually confident that he can do that? That he can beat Jermell?